What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh, fan of ShowMeFootball.com, covering your Missouri Tigers. And today I'm joined by none other than Brayden Dowers. And today we're going to preview LSU versus Missouri tomorrow at home for the Missouri Tigers. I was going to say the Tigers, but then of course LSU is the Tigers as well. But the game will be played at home. I expect Furrow Field to be absolutely packed. And I've been hearing a rumor that Truman the Tiger is going to be entering by like a helicopter or something like that. Did you see that?
He's gonna skydive.
Yeah, he's going to skydive into the stadium. So make sure you're in there early to see Truman skydive into the stadium. I mean, I know it's like kind of supposed to be like a surprise, but I feel like everyone knows it's happening at this point. But it's just something to get fans hyped up and get them in the stadium early, maybe earlier than they usually would get in there because it is an 11 a.m. kickoff. Which is kind of disappointing, but we'll talk about how that kind of affects this matchup later on. But Brayden, what are your first thoughts, your anticipation for this matchup? I know LSU is favored at home. The opening line was like LSU 6.5 or maybe 7.5.
It's moved down to -4 the last time I checked.
Yep, it's moved down, but of course LSU is a road favorite. I was kind of surprised that they were favored by as much as they were to begin this game because I feel like Missouri is the hotter team and they have a really good offense. LSU has a really bad defense. We'll get into that, but what are your initial thoughts on this one?
I am kind of worried because I remember we were on a call during the end of the LSU Ole Miss game and we were watching it. And I brought up the question, are we going to, like, if LSU loses this game, how are they going to come into Furrow? Like, are they just going to be pissed off and we're going to be playing an amped up LSU, or are we going to be playing an LSU team that already thinks that their season's over? Because it's going to be extremely hard as a 2-loss team to get into the college football playoffs. I know that, like I said last week, I'm going to be there. I expect to be, or I'm at least like definitely going to try to be one of the first people in the fucking stands and get as close as I can to the action. I have a gut feeling just because I'm going, because there's all these stakes and everything. This is a classic Mizzou gets absolutely housed. That's just what my gut's telling me. But my brain and my heart are telling me that this game is going to be really close and it's going to be a really fun one.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's going to be a close one too. I feel like it'll be high scoring, which, it kind of seems like the cop-out answer for this game because LSU's offense looks pretty good. They put up 49 points last week. Missouri's offense looks really good this year. And both the teams' defenses, have a lot of questions. Now, Missouri's defense is a little bit more respectable than LSU's. LSU's defense is, we'll start kind of with that side of the ball for LSU. LSU is giving up, oh man, I just had it in front of me, but their defense ranks 11th in the SEC right now. I think they're giving up 260 pass yards per game. If you look at their game last week against Ole Miss was ranked 16th, or they were ranked 20-something coming into the game. They're ranked 16th now.
No, they were ranked 17 last week. They only moved up 1 spot.
Okay, thanks for correcting me. But I know they were ranked, and obviously they beat LSU. Ole Miss had over 700 yards of total offense, which is just absolutely insane. And I feel like our offense is just as good, if not better, than Ole Miss. I think Jackson Dart and Brady Cook are both very comparable QBs. I think Missouri at this point is being recognized as having one of the best wide receiver rooms in all of the SEC. Ole Miss was able to throw for 400 yards essentially on LSU's defense. LSU's defense ranks in the hundreds nationally. Ole Miss also ran for over 300 yards. Missouri's running game isn't necessarily a feared ground attack, but Cody Schrader is like second or third in the SEC in rushing yards this year, which I think is worth something. He was until Ray Davis had like 250 yards against Florida. But Cody Schrader's still up there, and I feel like Missouri's run game is only going to get better. Drinkwitz did talk about in his press conference earlier this week that he is hoping for a little bit more from Missouri's backside run blocking. And he feels like some of these runs that are going for 2 or 3 yards should really be going for 6, 7 plus yards. And he thinks the running game is really close to breaking out. And this will be a game where maybe that could happen because, look, man, LSU's defense is just not very good. And it almost kind of reminds you of that 2020 matchup, which I feel like going into that one, there was a lot less known about LSU. I feel like there's a bigger sample size heading into this one than there was when they came into Faroe in 2020. And also, that was just a weird season, and the crowd was only like a quarter full, and it's just a weird game. But that game also featured a shootout between two teams that just didn't have a very good defense. This year, it's kind of similar, but I feel like Missouri's defense is a lot more respectable, has a lot more talent than it did then. But sticking
We
with
know that
kind of
Missouri's defense can they can
They can
show
get
up when they
stopped.
need to. Yeah, they can get stops. They can show up when they need to. I don't think that Missouri's defense, like LSU's offense, is by far the best offense that they've faced all year. They're significantly better than K-State, I think. But there's if Mizzou's defense lets up more than 45 points, I'll be really surprised.
Yeah, and we talked last week about the defensive performance even against Vanderbilt, where they really, they shut down Vanderbilt's two best offensive players for like 90% of the game. Their defense was actually doing pretty well. There was a couple bad plays, some bad officiating that went against Mizzou. And then, of course, they let up those 2 late touchdowns and kind of let Vandy back in it just for a second. But I feel like the consensus between me and you was that this defense is better than that, and maybe they just got caught looking ahead to LSU. And we also pointed out that really most of the defense's problem was just the safety position. If they can get that figured out, then their pass coverage, their pass defense could be a hell of a lot better than what we've seen so far.
For sure. But kind of going back to LSU and their defense, they did bring back Pete Jenkins, who is a loved universally by everybody that's an LSU fan.
Yeah.
They brought him back to coach the defensive line, and their defensive line has 2 pretty big names, one of them being familiar to Mizzou fans, Mekhi Wingo and Mazon Smith. Mazon Smith, I remember before the year seeing he's projected to go inside the first round as one of the top defensive linemen in the country, and Mekhi Wingo is projected to be about 3rd to 4th, day 2, maybe early day 3 pick. And Mekhi Wingo obviously used to go to Mizzou, and he left because LSU hired his former head coach in high school. So
Yeah.
and yeah, I remember you told me this. Mekhi Wingo was Drinkwitz's first ever commit to Mizzou. So that's really the matchups
Revenge
that I'm
game.
going to be watching. Yeah. That's really the matchups I'm going to be watching, is seeing how much Mazon Smith and Mekhi Wingo do against our offensive line, because especially with Pete Jenkins coming in, that is a very big factor into this game, because I think that's the most uncertain matchup and we don't know what's going to happen. Whereas I feel like every other side of the ball, you have a pretty good idea. LSU's offense is going to be really good. Their pass defense is going to be terrible, but that might not matter depending on how well their D-line plays and against Mizzou's offense. That's what I think this game's going to come down to, is LSU's defensive line.
Well, also a name that you didn't mention that got a lot of hype coming into the year is outside linebacker Harold Perkins. A lot of people thought he could be, at least on the LSU side, like a Micah Parsons level defensive prospect this year. And he's kind of had a disappointing year so far. But from what I've read, a lot of that is because LSU is trying to get a little too cute with where they line him up. And they've been trying to move him all over, again, like a Micah Parsons. But he just needs to be rushing off the edge and getting after the quarterback, because that's where he does best. And LSU has messed around a little bit with him. It's kind of hurt them. And I'll be interested to see if they just, keep Harold Perkins at edge for this game and let him go to work. Because if they do that, then their defensive line could have a performance that's a lot better than any of them we've seen so far from them this year. So I'll be watching for that. you mentioned how this game could come down to LSU's defensive line. Really, and that's a really specific way of putting it. What I would say is that I think this game is going to come down to which defense makes more stops. And honestly, and I know I'm a little bit biased, I trust Mizzou's defense to get stops against LSU's offense more than I trust LSU's defense to get stops against Missouri's offense, especially at home. So that's why I'm going to, I mean, we're not doing our predictions yet, but I'm picking Missouri to win this game for that reason. Like, it's at home. You have a really good offense. They have a horrible defense. Our defense maybe isn't elite, but it's a lot better than LSU's. So I trust our defense to get the stops required to win this game.
I don't necessarily know if it's going to be stops, more of interceptions and forced turnovers, because LSU's had a bit of an issue with that. Jaden Daniels, I've seen him get absolutely lit up and fumble the ball a couple times almost every single game. I remember in that Florida State game and that Ole Miss game, he just got lit up by defenders. And I think if you get Tyron Hopper versus him in the open field, and he's able to just come up, he's going to be able to punch the ball out at least once or twice. And Chris Abrams-Draine has had an interception in 3 straight games. So, I think that Mizzou's defense's ability to get turnovers, if Mizzou can win in the turnover differential battle, which they have been able to all year, have we even had a fumble?
We did. Cody Schrader fumbled the ball against Memphis.
Okay,
That's the only one I can remember off the top of my head. Did. And then Sam Horn had an interception in the second half against South Dakota State.
South Dakota, yeah.
Those are the only 2 I can remember.
Yes, interception. So, yeah, it's like our starting offense has only had 1 turnover all year, and that is where we're going to win the game if we can continue that trend of getting a lot of turnovers and limiting our own turnovers as well. Brady Cook's going to have to throw an interception at some point this year. He can't keep being this protective of the football with his ability to deep throw it. Who knows if it happens against LSU, because, I mean, just looking at their secondary, Zy Alexander's been disappointing. You have a strong safety that's named Major Burns. That's not somebody that's not a name for a strong safety.
Also, I should mention they don't have very many scholarship cornerbacks coming into this game, and the ones that they do have on scholarship haven't been very good this year. I know they had a cornerback or Brian Kelly basically said he's off the team now, and that's another hit to their depth. I'm going to try to look him up because I forgot his name.
But the other 2 are on, the other 2 listed starters are Andre Sam and Denver Harris.
Yes. So Deuce Chestnut was his name. Brian Kelly said he's not currently with the team and his future is uncertain. So that's another hit to their depth. I don't know how many snaps he was playing for the defense, but I know their depth isn't super great at cornerback already. So can only be a good thing for us.
For sure. Especially for Burden and Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper.
Yep. Yeah, Luther Burden's probably the best wide receiver that LSU is going to face all year, and I really don't know how they're going to cover him, because it's not like teams at this point are oblivious to the fact that Luther Burden is this huge weapon. They just can't stop him. Even Vandy tried putting 2 guys on him. Remember, I think it was his first touchdown in the game. I mean, there were 2 guys covering him, and he just ran past both of them for his first touchdown on one of the corner routes. And I don't know how LSU is going to contain him. And even if they try putting 2 guys on him, I could see another big Theo Weiss game, to be honest.
For sure.
And I just don't see how LSU is going to be able to stop this offense if they're clicking like they did against K-State, like they did against Vanderbilt. I mean, this offense is just on a whole nother level right now. Missouri's passing offense, I think, ranks in the top 5 of the SEC. You mentioned Brady Cook. Yeah, he's probably going to turn the ball over at some point, but he's on a roll right now. I think he knows how important this game is, and he's going to make it a point to take care of the football. And I think his streak of throwing no interceptions continues in this game. He's going to throw one at some point this season. I agree with you, but I think he continues his greatness of not throwing an interception, because I know he broke the record last week against Vanderbilt for most pass attempts without an interception in SEC history.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even realize he was that close heading into that game.
And you mentioned Burden, but I've been pretty consistent with this throughout the entire year. Malik Neighbors is insane. I think that that's going to be the other really big matchup. That's going to be the just X factor matchup for us on defense, is going to be how well can our defense, specifically Chris Abrams-Draine, and hopefully Marvin Burks. Hopefully he gets more playing time than Joseph Charleston. Because if those two are shadowing him, and you have Burks over the top, and Chris is just shadowing him the entire game, I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot. And even if he switches sides and is up on Rankstraw's side, I think that we'll be doing fine. Like, that's another matchup where I feel at least semi-confident. And then, Burden. Back to him. So last week against Ole Miss, there was a couple plays where their wide receivers were just spitting out of LSU tackles and making like 5 guys miss. There's one specific play that they got for a touchdown towards the end of the game where I watched it and I'm like, I genuinely think that Luther can make all 11 guys on this defense miss, because they have shown zero ability to tackle whatsoever.
Yeah, that's kind of one of our defense's weaknesses too so far, is missed tackles. It's like a lot, like our defense, the guys are getting there. They're getting there fast, but a lot of them are missing on the initial tackle attempt. LSU is getting like 5 chances, though, to tackle a lot of these guys, and they just keep missing. Really bad tackling team. And then you mentioned their hiring of the defensive line coach. I'm
Pete
already forgetting
Jenkins.
his name. Yeah, Jenkins. That seems like a desperation, like coaching hire in the middle of the season. Like, oh shit, our defense sucks. Like we need to bring someone in because we have no idea what the hell we're doing.
Yeah,
which is kind of odd too. Well, one more thing, it's kind of odd too because it feels like their defensive line is kind of one of their stronger units on the defense. But I mean, when you're giving up 700 yards of offense in a game, I guess you just try to improve anywhere you can.
I mean, you got to do anything to get this team better, because their defense, like you said, letting up 700 yards is unacceptable.
Well, and it's like the rushing defense. Like that's the thing with LSU's defensive line. Like they can get pressure for sure. The rush defense is where they've really struggled, though, which makes me confident that maybe Mizzou's run game can really get going, because Mizzou's run game has been interesting. Like I said, Cody Schrader, he's been one of the top running backs in the SEC this year. That's what the stats will tell you. But at times it feels like the run game has kind of been shut down. I know against Memphis, like they were not getting anything in the run game. And then in the second half, it really started to open up. Kind of the same story against Vanderbilt. Wasn't really working early, but then later in the game, they were gashing Vanderbilt. And I would like to see them establish the run early in this game. Maybe run the ball early, maybe not often, but run it early, see what you can get. Do not do the outside zone run with Nate Pete. I am begging you. Really don't do the outside run with either of them. Like Cody Schrader can do it if he needs to, but I really don't want to see them do it with Nate Pete. Nate Pete's kind of your downhill guy. Like hand the ball off to him, and he's just going to hit the hole as soon as he sees it and run as hard as he can. But yeah, I would like to see the run game established against this LSU defensive front, because honestly, I don't think they can stop it very well.
I mean, they haven't proven that they can stop anything all year. So I'm not too worried about Missouri's offense outside of how well our offensive line does against their defensive line and how much we limit the penalties on offense, specifically like holdings and false starts on the
Yeah, the procedural penalties, like I am begging those to get cleaned up. And also, hopefully Connor Tollison can snap the ball when Brady Cook is actually expecting it. Because I'm telling you, one of those times he's done it like at least once a game in every game.
Yeah.
It would seem. And if he does that in this one, it could lead to a costly turnover, and you cannot have that against a team like this. And I know this LSU team's already down. I know that a lot of people probably think their season is over, from their fan base. And I'm sure the players are bummed because, they're essentially out of the college football playoff at this point. It'd be really hard for them to make it in, although nothing's impossible. But when you're already
if they
team,
if they go on to win the SEC at 10-2, I think that they make it.
Yeah, it's not impossible, but it's really hard as a 2-loss team this early in the season to make it. So it'll be interesting to see how much they get up for this game. But if you're Missouri, you still got to treat this as any other LSU team, and you're more so trying to you're trying to beat them. Obviously you're trying to win the game, but when you beat them, it's not just because you think oh, it's this great LSU team. You're beating the name on the front of the jersey. Beating LSU is great for optics, and it's going to get people to really notice Missouri. People are already starting to talk about Mizzou. Mizzou is relevant in football right now, but if you can beat LSU when they're road favorites and move to 6-0, people are really going to start paying attention to you.
Definitely. If we beat LSU, I think people are going to be forced to give us respect.
Yeah.
Because
and maybe stop giving us 11 a.m. kickoffs.
Yeah. We've already been guaranteed a 6 or 6:30 kickoff in Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that'll be a fun one too.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about kind of the vibe heading into this game from both teams, but I wanted to address LSU's passing attack. So Jayden Daniels is obviously a very talented passer. He's a great runner too, but he's really grown as a passer since he's been at LSU. And then Luther Burden's probably the best receiver in the SEC, but Malik Neighbors is not far behind him. And then they also have Brian Thomas Jr., who leads the SEC in receiving touchdowns. He had 3 receiving touchdowns just against Ole Miss last week, and he had 8 catches for 124 yards. Thomas and Neighbors, you really have got to watch them. And luckily, Mizzou's cornerback duo and Ennis Rakestraw and Chris Abrams-Draine is better than just about any in the SEC. So you feel good about them, but also it just makes you a little bit nervous because it's all going to come down to getting stops in this game. And Neighbors and Thomas are, that's a tough duo to stop. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And then one more thing I wanted to talk about with Mizzou's defense. So Jayden Daniels also can get out of the pocket. He can run a little bit. But one of the biggest – everyone talks about Missouri's passing offense or just the offense in general against LSU's defense being the biggest advantage in this game. But where I see another massively lopsided advantage in favor of Missouri is their rushing defense. Their rushing defense ranks 8th in the entire nation. And that's with Darius Robinson being out last week against Vanderbilt and being out basically after the first drive, I think it was, against Memphis. And we'll get to injury reports in a second, but I think Darius Robinson will play in this game. He's listed as questionable, but I think it's impossible that he misses this game. I feel like he's going to play, and it seems like they told him to stay home last week so he could rest up for this game because I know he didn't even make the trip to Vanderbilt. But I think this running defense is going to show out against LSU, and they're going to have a challenge in stopping Jayden Daniels and playing containment when he tries to get outside the pocket. But I think they can do it, and I think they're already preparing for that. I know Ken Seals, Vanderbilt's quarterback last week, actually had the first rushing touchdown against Missouri's defense last week. But Ken Seals was a guy that they weren't exactly preparing to play against, and they didn't really know what he would provide for Vanderbilt. And he just scrambled for a touchdown from 10 yards out. But besides that, Missouri's rushing defense has been on point, and I can't see them letting Jayden Daniels kill them.
Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks, and if not the best quarterback in the SEC. And I think that Logan Diggs is a top 3 running back in the SEC as well. But Mizzou's rush defense has yet to be gashed severely by any team on the season so far, that I'm not too worried about it. Outside of Avery Johnson, the backup quarterback.
Yeah. Every time they brought him in, you knew they were running, and it seemed like we were getting up 5 or 6 yards every time he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm confident in this defense. I think I kept pointing to K-State where this defense kind of stood tall to the occasion, and I think they're going to do it again against LSU. I think Missouri will win this game, and again, we're not doing our predictions quite yet, but I know that I've said that Missouri will win. That being said, I don't think they're going to win just because of their defense. Obviously, the offense is going to have to score points, but I'm just very confident in this defense getting the stops they need to beat LSU. I trust them more. I don't trust LSU's defense to get stops against us. LSU's fans don't even trust their defense to get stops against us. I mean, we're one of the better offenses they've seen all year, and I know they're terrified of this game, whether they admit it or not.
What's the injury reports for both sides looking like? I know you said Darius was questionable, but for LSU, who are they going to be without?
So I know LSU is without a pair of wide receivers and a linebacker. Last time I checked, I'll get that in a second. But on Mizzou's side, wide receivers Mekhi Miller and Peanut Houston will both be out due to injury. Mekhi Miller, this will be his second week in a row where he's out. But I mean, you have Mookie Cooper to step up in his spot on third downs. And then Drinkwitz said that Darius Robinson is questionable, of course, with that calf strain. That's really it. I don't think Marcellus Johnson was on the injury report. I don't think he played against Vanderbilt, but I don't remember seeing him on the injury report. So I'd imagine he will play. Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Brett Norfleet, Ennis Rakestraw, Drayden Norwood were questionable on last week's injury report. We're not listed on this one. So looking pretty healthy for this. Oh, yeah, Marcellus Johnson. He is listed as questionable, but I think he'll also play. But, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mean, I'm trying to find LSU's injury report, and I can't really see much.
It wasn't very significant. I don't think the guys that were on there were.
It looks like for them, Chris Helton, who's a receiver, Aaron Anderson, who's a punt returner, and Omar Spites.
Yeah, the linebacker. Which I'm not even going to pretend to know enough about LSU's defense to know how big of a part he was playing.
Weeks is going to make his third start of the season, and that was a name that I did recognize against Ole Miss. He was kind of flying all over the field, so he's a freshman. He could be somebody to watch out for too. Just somebody to keep an eye on.
Yeah, but I mean, we broke down both sides of the ball for these teams. I want to talk about the vibe heading into this game. So this is obviously a huge game for Missouri. They really want to win this. This game could really put them on the map and, again, raise the ceiling for what this season could be. I know that the K-State game, that was the big swing game early in the season, and a lot of Missouri fans were saying if you can win that, like this could go from maybe being a 6, 7, 8-win season to maybe being a 9-win season or a 10-win season. This would only amplify that feeling. If you can win this one, I mean 6-0, you're not even really in the thick of SEC play yet, but it feels like a lot of these teams are beatable, like South Carolina and Kentucky. That Kentucky game will be exciting, not to look too far ahead, but I don't think they're that good. I think they're fraudulent, to be quite honest, but we'll see what happens with them against Georgia. But, man, this is a huge game. You can feel it with the players. You can feel it with the fans. And it's going to be massive. But looking at this from LSU side, I was listening to that SEC podcast earlier today with Michael Brayden and Cousin Shane, and they do a great job. Really entertaining podcast that they have. But they were kind of breaking down this Mizzou-LSU matchup, and Cousin Shane was talking about how the vibe from the LSU side kind of makes it seem like they don't – like, obviously they're taking this game seriously, but it kind of feels like they think they're going to walk in and just beat Missouri. And if they think they're going to just walk in and beat Missouri playing like a C-plus game or whatever, they're in for a rude awakening because that's not happening. This Missouri team's going to get up for this game. And I also kind of joked about 11 a.m. kickoffs last week and how, I wish this game was later in the day, but also, we're used to the 11 a.m. kickoffs.
Yeah.
LSU is not. And I feel like
I don't think outside of Mississippi State, I think all of their games have been later.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're LSU, you got to wake up early for this game. It's going to kind of be a weird vibe. You're playing early in the day. and you're on the road. I could see LSU maybe coming out a little flat, and then Missouri takes a big lead. Drink has made it a point in both the Vanderbilt games and the Memphis games to be aggressive. He's just been doing some crazy stuff just to prove he's aggressive, like going forward on fourth down against Vanderbilt from midfield and opening the game with an onside kick against Memphis. And of course, neither of them converted or neither of them counted. But Drink is willing to try some stuff, and I could see him trying to go out there and make a statement early against LSU and catch them sleeping.
For sure. I mean, he's been doing it, and he wants to prove to the fan base again that he's aggressive. Go back to that 2020 version of himself.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of people were talking about how it feels like the Drink from 2020, the Drink from 3 years ago has kind of like went away, and Drink has gone into this the shell that he has, this figurative shell. But he's slowly come out of that. Obviously, a lot of credit goes to Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator, who I think has become a real asset for this team. And it just feels like the stars are kind of aligning for Missouri. And people have started to slowly draw comparisons to Missouri's 2007 season and how, this season's kind of starting off similar to that. And it reminds people of like,
I thought
I think it was 2007, because 2007, I believe, is when around this time in the season they were playing Texas Tech, and Texas Tech was ranked coming into that game against Missouri, and everyone thought Texas Tech was going to run over Missouri. They were kind of overlooking Missouri, and then Missouri stunned them, and they beat a ranked Texas Tech team. And that 2007 was a special season. I think this has a chance to be a really special season. I think the defense will slowly start to make improvements and start to look more like last year. This offense is just humming right now. And, I look at the schedule, and I don't want to look too far ahead, but you look at the schedule, and there's not too many games on there that you think Missouri doesn't have a really good shot to win.
Mm-hmm.
And man, if you could come out of this game 6-0 and beat LSU, put yourself on a national level, that'd just be massive for this program. And I know there's going to be a lot of big recruits there this weekend. Williams Nwaneri, the 5-star defensive end commit, is going to be back in town for this game. Ryan Wingo is going to be at this game. He canceled his visit to the Red River Shootout,
which is
to come to this
massive.
one. Yeah, that's been reported. Ryan Wingo is going to be there. Jackson Cantwell, the 5-star offensive lineman from Nixa, is going to be there. And a lot of people thought the door was kind of shut on him. He's going to be at this game. And it just this game feels massive on all levels. Just, for the program, for recruiting, everything.
Just looking at this game, if we win this game, there's not a single home game for the rest of the year that I don't think we win. Like, if we beat LSU and are 6-0 going into next week, we have 3 home games after that: South Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida. I don't see us losing any of those if we win this game.
I feel really good. That's for damn sure. But obviously, with a game of this magnitude, and this is where people were kind of concerned about the K-State game, is it feels like there is a lot of stock being put into this game, a lot of Missouri seasons being put into this game. And so
it's our Super Bowl.
What it kind of is, but it's like, what happens if you lose?
K-State.
What happens if you lose? Do you let it turn into 2 losses and get down on yourself and then lose next week? Do you respond? There's a lot being put on this game, and sometimes that can be a little bit dangerous because you don't want it to kind of define the season or be the turning point where it looked like Missouri might win 9 or 10 games, and then all of a sudden they only win 7 or 8, and it's like, now you're a little disappointed. You felt like they should have won more, and they let the LSU game get in their heads. So you're trying to avoid that. But I mean, this team's motto has been STP, something to prove, and it feels like they're kind of blocking out the outside noise. They don't really care where they're ranked right now or any of that stuff. They're just trying to go out there and win. And this team is going to try to do whatever it takes to win. And I'm confident, man. And I think this crowd's going to have their back against LSU. I think it's huge that this game is
included.
Yeah, you're going to be there. I mean, hopefully you bring some good luck, but I know Terry's going to be at the game. Shout out Terry. Yeah. Shout out Terry Kluner. I know he's Mizzou superfan. Terry is going to be at this game. But yeah, there's going to be some stars in the house. I mean, we're talking about these 5-star recruits, but I mean, Terry is probably going to be the biggest name in Columbia this week.
For sure. Him versus Brett Sarver, lot N.
Yeah. I guess they're going to box it out. That's what I saw on Twitter. But it all comes down to this. Brayden, I'm going to ask you first. I know I already said I got
Yeah.
Mizzou winning this game, but what's your prediction? What's your score prediction? Who do you think wins?
I'm completely fine with being wrong. Like I said at the very start of this, my gut feeling is LSU's gonna beat the ever loving shit out of us. Like I
Have
just
some
have
faith.
like it I just have this really bad gut feeling. I really hope that it's wrong, and I hope that I'm wrong. But I am gonna predict LSU to win 40-34.
Hmm.
That's
Well,
what
you have
I'm
it
gonna go
close.
with. I'm gonna say that we lose close. I'm obviously gonna be perfectly fine if we win big or win close. I don't care. But what my gut is telling me is that LSU is gonna win this game.
I feel like the most shocking result would be Missouri getting housed in this one. And I understand why you're afraid of that happening because it just seems like the Mizzou thing to
Mm-hmm.
happen. Get up for a big game
Yeah.
or all the fans
I'm
get
I'm
into
gonna
it. Then
I'm
there's a
gonna bet
letdown.
on us Mizzouing it until we Mizzou it.
Well, so, I understand
I'm gonna
that.
expect us to Mizzou it until we do, because then I can't be hurt as much.
But I feel like the most shocking result will be Missouri, like losing by double digits or something. I feel like we're too good to get blown out. I think if anyone was going to get blown out in this one, I honestly think it would be LSU because their defense is just that awful.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm a lot more confident in ours. But I have Missouri winning this game, and I'm going to say Mizzou wins 35-30. I think it will be close. Mizzou has shown an ability to put up 30 plus points now multiple times. So I got them putting up 35 in this one against a really porous LSU defense. And then LSU also gets to 30, but Missouri's defense, again, comes up with the clutch stops that it needs. And Missouri gets the ball last, and they run out the clock for a victory after LSU has a failed attempt to go down the field and score a touchdown to take the lead. So that's my prediction. But yeah, man, anything else?
I don't really have anything. Just go Tigers. I think the Tigers are gonna win.
Which ones?
The
Oh,
Tigers.
I see. You're setting up for your joke there. But yeah, so
Such a
we'll go ahead.
stupid joke.
I know it's overused as hell, but we'll go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and wrap it up there. With all that being said, make sure you guys let us know down in the comments what your predictions are for this game. If you agree, disagree with us on anything, we'd love to hear from y'all. But make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com. And then, of course, I'm sure Brayden wants me to plug Show Me Movies for his movie reviews. Don't worry, Brayden, I'm plugging Show Me Movies for you. Because I know you've been pumping out reviews on there. But yeah, all that will be linked in the description, and we will see you all in the next one. MIZ.